Welcome to Spoiler Piece Theater, the podcast that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. We just want to talk about the movies. My name is Evan Crean. My pronouns are he, him. I'm co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s movie guide to better living.
My name is Megan Kearns. My pronouns are she, her. I write film reviews for Edge Media Network. I, too, am a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and I'm a member of Gallica, the Society of LGBTQ Entertainment Critics.
And my name is Dave Riedel. My pronouns are he, him. I write and I talk about movies. And I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, just like my co-hosts, yay.
Woo woo.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
On this week's show, we have two movies we're going to talk about. But before we get to those, I'll just mention that over on our Patreon this week, our Patreon exclusive audio, we were talking about the 1988 film Miracle Mile, which we've been wanting to cover for a while. And it was a first-time watch for me. So I was really excited to see and talk about an 80s film I haven't seen before. And it's a really fun conversation and a really interesting movie to dig into. So if you are a patron, definitely check that out. And if you're not a patron, consider signing up. We release exclusive audio every week. We talk about older films, so you can get access to that and you can vote in some polls and it's good times. So patreon.com/spoilerpiece. So on this week's show, we have two movies, as I mentioned. We are going to start by talking about the Banshees of Inisherin, but we are also going to talk about Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. So Banshees of Inisherin is written and directed by Martin McDonagh. You may know from 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, 7 Psychopaths, In Bruges, etc., etc. And it stars Colin Farrell, Brendan Gleeson, Carrie Condon, Barry Keoghan, and I feel like that's the important people we need to mention.
Yeah.
And so our one-sentence IMDb is 2 lifelong friends find themselves at an impasse when one abruptly ends their relationship with alarming consequences for both of them. Sure.
I mean,
Yeah, that's true.
That's a mild description. It's the mild version.
That's the non-spoiler version, which is very accurate.
Yeah.
Yes. So we have Brendan Gleeson and Colin Farrell, who have been friends for a very long time. This was a period piece, which I was not aware of going into. It takes place in 1923, as we learned from the calendar. And Brendan Gleeson has decided that he no longer wants to be friends with Colin Farrell. He's basically just tells him just ignores him one day when, Colin Farrell's character, Patrick, comes to see if they call on him to go to the pub. And he tells him, look, I just don't want to hang out with you. You're dull. I would rather spend my time making music, which is my passion. So leave me the fuck alone, you dull bastard.
Yeah.
And the crux of that is Colin Farrell's character trying to deal with that emotionally, trying to come to grips with the fact that his friend has decided he no longer wants to be friends. And trying to, find friendship elsewhere with Barry Keoghan's character. He's kind of he's like this. I don't know what they call him, the town something or other, sod or something. I don't know. They call him the town
I don't remember
idiot,
what they call him, but basically the town fool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he keeps trying to hang out with Brendan Gleeson. And Brendan Gleeson's character says, look, you're clearly not getting the hint here. So if you don't stop bothering me, I'm going to start cutting my fingers off one by one. And he does.
He sure does. I mean, the whole nose to spite face thing. I mean, fuck. I know that you can still write music, but it's hard to finger the notes on your fiddle when you don't have a fretting hand,
Correct. Yep. So, what did you both think of this movie?
I love this. This is one of my top 10 favorite films of the year. I absolutely adore this. I think this is morbidly funny. It's sad. It's melancholy. It's hilarious. Most comedies don't make me laugh out loud, and there's so many parts I laughed out loud. For instance, it's a kind of silly line, but when the two of them are talking, when Colm and Parik are talking, and Colm is talking about how their conversations are just mundane and they're boring and he's got to devote his time to his art. And Parek's like, it's good normal chatting. He says that repeatedly and I just love that. I think, I don't always like Martin McDonagh, but I think this is such a smart, sharply written, shrewd script. I think the cinematography is beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Ireland has never looked better. And I think that Colin Farrell, this is my favorite performance of the year for an actor. And I think that Colin Farrell always is really interesting in his roles on screen. He's an incredibly gifted, nuanced actor, and he is phenomenal here. And I think Brendan Gleeson is too. I think Carrie Condon is also wonderful. Love her in Better Call Saul. It was great to see her here in her native Irish, because I've only ever seen her play an American. I'm not a huge fan of Barry Keoghan, but even seeing him, I was like, he's a really tragic figure
he's
here
good,
too.
though.
Yeah, he is. He's really good. And yeah, and I love Jenny the donkey. And that's what I love about Colm is that he's very simple. He's very, very easily pleased. Like he just wants to tend to his animals, hang out with his best friend, go to the pub. And that's it. He wants nothing more out of life. But Colm and Siobhan, his sister, they want so much more out of life, and not being able to get that more out of life is really taking a toll on each of them separately. But I love that we see Parek's innocence and his joy through his love of Jenny the donkey and animals. But we also see that his joy erodes, and it's really tragic to witness. So I love this.
Should I go? Should I talk about what I think? Well, Megan, I gotta say, I agree with most of everything.
Yay!
But yeah, I mean, what struck me about this was not the performances, which I knew would be good. I am not the world's biggest Colin Farrell fan, but but when he's got it going, he's got it going. And Brendan Gleeson is always quite fine.
Yes.
Plays a lot of the same character from movie to movie, but that's okay. He's very good at this thing.
He's good at it.
And I'm not a big Barry Keoghan fan either, but I think he's really good in this part.
Agreed.
I think it's because, I don't know why, but he usually gets cast as kind of a creep. So I think that sort of informs how I feel about him, even though that probably has nothing to do with him. It definitely doesn't have anything. My feelings about him have nothing to do with him. But I think that he's pretty versatile, and this movie is just another example of that. But what I found so compelling about this was not just the fact that the Parek is falling apart after Colm tells him, "I don't want to be your friend anymore," but that over the course of the movie, you realize that Colm is actually the asshole in this situation. He's just a kind of a horrible person, you know? Not a horrible person, but the whole idea that you would go to the lengths you would be so cruel as to cut off your own fingers and tell your former friend, former in air quotes, because I feel like this movie ends with one of those things where almost like a grumpy old men kind of thing, where it's like they're enemies, but they're not really enemies. The idea that you would be so cruel to somebody that you supposedly cared about for so many years and try to make him feel as if everything, not try, but it definitely comes across that it's just basically, Parek, you're not worthy of my time anymore. And that's just so, it's just mean, you know?
Right. They say in the movie, it's not nice. It's very not nice or something to that effect,
yes.
which it is very not nice. It is a very mean thing to do to somebody.
And the you know, you kind of go from, at least I did. I felt like at the beginning, or maybe even toward the, you know, through the first third, you know, Parek, you know, he doesn't want to be your friend anymore, or whatever. You know, get smarter. He doesn't seem like he's bluffing with the fingers thing, so don't talk to him on the, you know. But then it gets to a point where it's just like, how terrible is Colm willing to be to get his point across, you know? I mean, and also just like the kind of mixed messages with like after Park gets punched out by the cop and then giving him a ride, you know, Colm gives him a ride home in his cart. This is after he said, by the way, I don't want to be your friend ever anymore. If you ever speak to me again, I'll cut my finger off. You know, it's just like, oh my God.
Right. Or in the bar or in the pub when Pyrick like yells at him in front of everybody and then storms out, and then Colm's like, oh, I think I might like him again. That was probably the most interesting he's been in a long time.
Yeah.
It's so funny though. I have a very different take on it. Like, I agree, it's very cruel, it's very mean, but also he's allowed to have space and he's allowed to state his boundaries and be like, hey, I don't want to talk to you anymore. And as cruel as it is, I'm also like, Pyrick is violating his boundaries.
You're absolutely right. But to go to the point of cutting off your own fingers is, it's like psychotic, which I just, and for this movie, it works perfectly because you really do get the feeling, the way this movie is written, that nothing is going to make Pyrick believe any of this until that happens, which I think is Colm's motivation, so, but at the same time, it's just so bizarrely unpleasant, but at the same time, highly watchable.
Right? Yeah, and I actually really like the scenes you guys are talking about with like mixed messages, and they're certainly mixed messages for Pyrick. I love those scenes because that shows that Colm still very much loves and cares about Pyrick. He just feels like he's running out of time and he wants to allocate his time very differently. And also it's kind of like, what do you do? Like, I'm thinking of like in real life, like what do you do when a friend, you do drift apart or in a relationship or what have you. So I don't know. I very much saw where each of them were coming from, even though, yes, Colm is dealing with it in a very cruel and unhinged way. But something else that shows Colm's heart, even if he doesn't have a heart per se, is one of my favorite scenes when he's talking in confession to the priest and he's asking the priest, or he's talking to the priest about like, oh, I'm really worried about Pyrick's donkey Jenny, and like, and the priest is like, God doesn't care about a little donkey. And I think he says one of the most telling lines in the film, and Colm's like, that's what I'm concerned about. I worry about that. And I think that's the thing, is that even though he's being so cruel, he's also very concerned about the erosion of kindness in society and in kind of daily life. And he's just going through this like massive existential crisis. So there's just so many layers to it. It's just fascinating.
Right. Well, we also know he's an animal guy too. Like, he loves his dog, and there's that scene where Pyrick comes in on him dancing with his dog, and he's like, well, I would dance with my donkey if I could. Like, I get it. I get that you love animals. And yeah, the confessional scenes are very funny. That one in particular, because the after the comment about the donkey, the priest is like, well, you punched a cop. Shouldn't you be more worried about that? And he says back to him, if punching a policeman is a sin, we might as well pack up and go home. And I just thought that was an amazing line.
Yeah.
Yep. It's very clear what they think of cops in the movie.
Well, that particular cop, certainly.
Yes, because he's an abusive scumbag. Yes.
Which I think is a great commentary on the current and probably the centuries-long state of policing. I also, the kind of the one thing that makes me go, that made me raise my eyebrow in a sort of kind of way is the fact that the Irish Civil War is going on in the background. And it's kind of like, in case you didn't get it, everybody, the Irish Civil War is going on too.
I mean, to be fair, I didn't know exactly when the Irish Civil War was going on. So I just saw that this was 1923, I don't always know historical dates. I wouldn't have automatically known, oh, the Irish Civil War is going on. So I actually kind of appreciated it. And to me, it was a good juxtaposition with the beauty of the island and the landscape and the ocean. It's like, oh, this horror is still going on. And I think it's great foreshadowing for kind of what's like, that's the macro happening. But in the micro level of this community, it's kind of foreshadowing the horrors that are to come. So I agree with you, but also for me personally, it worked quite well.
Okay. I'll buy that.
I agree
You
with you. I think it's a great juxtaposition between I would say the micro drama of the island against the macro
Yep.
drama of what's going on in the rest of society. So I think that's a great and kind of contrast, just to have their, feud is what's taking up everybody's time on the island. And the woman who owns the general store is concerned about everyone's, stories and
God.
gossip that they can tell.
Yes.
Meanwhile, people are killing each other on the mainland.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I also love it when, remind me what Park's sister's name is. Is it Siobhan?
Siobhan, yeah.
Yes.
Siobhan. When she says to calm, like, I don't remember exactly what it is, but basically, you guys are just fucking horrible. And then that's when she takes that job on the mainland, you know? And she's like, the men, and she says specifically the men on this island, et cetera, et cetera. And I just thought, I feel like in a lesser movie that would also, for me, be too heavy-handed. But I was like, I feel like she really earned that moment, her character, given what she's
she
like.
does.
She's witnessed her brother go through in relation to this, spat feud. I don't know, with Colm, and the way that the town is just sort of descending upon them like vultures to like, ooh,
Yes.
So.
Mm-hmm.
Hey.
But Evan, I know you've kind of given snippets of what you thought, but what did you think?
I think I liked most of this movie. I really thought the performances were just fantastic. I thought the dialogue was clever, funny, very indicative of Irish kind of morbid gallows humor. I thought the performances were great. I thought the humor was spot on. I liked the juxtaposition of the drama on the island versus the civil war that's happening off the island. I appreciate seeing Podrick as a character, how much he loves his animals and how they are kind of a salve in this situation for him. It's like, he can find relief and sympathy when he lets his dog eat his animals inside the house, and then even later after his sister leaves, where the animals just have free reign to walk around the house. And I think Colin Farrell, he picks interesting roles. I think I feel like there's large groups of Colin Farrell movies I haven't seen, but I do think he's really, really incredible in this. And I think he does Wounded very well in this. And I think you can see it on his face so many times, and despair. And so I think all that's great. I think my main thing was that I felt like the ending of the movie, as we are kind of like careening toward this, Podrick's going to light, Colum's house on fire, and he tells him, I'm going to light your house on fire, but don't let your dog out because I don't want to get your dog. Your dog's done nothing wrong. I'm going to burn your house down, and I hope you're in it. It felt like it lost steam for me. It felt like it lost steam. It felt like a little bit listless. I liked the scene on the beach afterward where we find out that Colm did not sit around and, die in his house fire. And Podrick says to him something to the effect of like, there's some things you can't undo. So like you can't basically like not all we're never going to be friends again. We've come too far. But I don't know, just something about the way that it ended felt like it was kind of losing steam, felt like a little bit listless, and I felt like we were sacrificing some of the intricacies between the characters in favor of the let's burn someone's house down and let's like go to the extreme, as like the fingers are getting chopped off. I'm going to throw all the fingers at the door, and then the donkey's going to choke on him and die, and then I'm going to light the house on fire. I feel like we were kind of using these kind of grandiose things, and I felt like I was missing more of the intimate character moments that I was kind of getting between them, like mining deeper and deeper into the people.
Interesting.
Yeah, because that is interesting. And because I feel like I hear what you're saying. I feel like those really large escalating actions, I feel like it's the natural conclusion. Like, I don't think, because the finger chopping happens pretty early on. And so I feel like, where do you go from there? Like that makes sense to me. But it's also, and of course, animal death, you guys know how I feel about that. It's so tragic. It's so sad. that when Jenny dies, that also makes sense that would be the final straw, that would be the tipping point for him to kind of lose his innocence, his naivete, his kindness. That would do it for him. And because he loves Jenny so much and he loves his animals so much. So yeah, so I think it's interesting. I had a very different reaction. I thought it was like, yep, this is where it's going. This is the only place it could have gone. And it made sense to me. Yeah.
I think I like it for similar reasons, but also I like the fact that, and this is not me guessing the ending, but this is, I like the idea or the way this carries out. The ending of this movie is inevitable, you know, and I appreciate the way it just went through with that narrative. And I really liked the, not twist, but the character development where I don't know that Colm ever thought he could push Park too far, you know?
Yes.
And then when Jenny dies, which Colm did not, it was an accident, as he tells the priest, that was the thing that shattered Park's innocence, and he's never going to be the same again. You know, if Jenny hadn't died, and even if Colm had cut all of his fingers off, but Jenny hadn't died, I think Park still would have been like, he'll still be my friend, whatever.
Right.
But once that donkey dies, and he's like, now I have no choice but to burn your home down. And if you're in the house, I'm not going to look in the windows to see if you're in the house. But then, of course, he does look in the windows because he's got a heart of gold.
Right.
But burns the house anyway.
And takes the dog.
Kind of like takes in, he's like, well, I guess I'm committing murder, you know? And I like that in that final scene on the beach, you see, you know, Brendan Gleeson looks a little bit more downtrodden, but Colin Farrell looks weary, heartbroken, full of anger and resentment. But there's still that moment, and this is what I think, just what an amazing moment I think to end on. Colin Farrell burnt the house down, made sure the dog was, you know, safe before he did it. You know, Colm put the dog outside as he was supposed to. And Colm says, "Thanks for looking after me, dog," you know, or whatever he said. It's that sentiment. And Colin Farrell turns, and there's just the slightest smile of recognition of their old friendship right there before his face falls back into that I'll just use the word weariness again. And he just says with just like grit in his voice, anytime. And you know he means it, but you know that it's now like, I don't know if it'll be an ongoing feud, but the resentment is never going to end. It'll never go away. I think that's a really powerful thing to end on. And the way that Colin Farrell plays that scene is kind of unreal.
Right?
You know?
I've
never thought of him as a guy who like acts with his face very much, but boy, does he do a lot of face acting in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Definitely.
Yeah, speaking to what you were saying, Evan, about how there's like I don't know if you said this, or maybe Dave, you said this. One of you were kind of talking about how you're not huge into Colin Farrell. And I wasn't okay, thank you. I wasn't for a very long time, like when he was in the 90s and the 2000s when he was like so huge. And when I saw him in the Jeff Bridges movie Crazy Heart, and he's in it for like 5-10 minutes, he blew me away. And ever since then, I've looked at him differently. And I think it's fascinating that he's done 4 films this year that have been released, and 2 of them are my favorite performances, or some of my favorite performances of the year, like in Banshees and also in After Yang, which is my favorite film of the year. So I think that's a testament to his range, his face acting, and he's so good at exuding charisma, but he is, as again, one of you said, he's great at exuding being wounded. And I think that he so is. And that's what's so tragic about this film, and so good.
Yeah. It's hard to watch his character go through all that, and you feel so deeply for him.
There are times though when you do want to say like, look, man, he's really serious. Just let him fuck off.
I know.
Right.
You know?
Well, yeah.
Just leave him alone.
And then there's that, but then there's like the patheticness of this from his perspective. Like, still continuing to pursue this despite all of these things. I mean, and then there's also the patheticness of, Brendan Gleeson's character, that he's willing to go so far, like you were saying earlier, that he's going to take it this far.
Yeah. Yeah. Regarding Colin Farrell, I think I kind of feel the same way you do, Megan. Like, I actually liked him in Minority Report. I think that's the the only thing I liked about Minority Report was him and Max von Sydow. The rest of it, but when he stopped, I don't think he ever wanted to be a movie star, and he got caught up in the he's beautiful. He gave a great performance in Tigerland, and everyone was like, "This is the next big thing." Right. And once he got past the idea that he had to be the next big thing, he's just turned in like 10, 15 years of great character performances.
Exactly. Weird, unique, nuanced performances and work. Yeah, I could not agree more. It makes me want to go back and like watch everything he's done, like even the really mainstream things.
Except for the one with Pacino. That was no good.
Oh, that movie is terrible.
Wait, which movie was that one?
Is that The Recruit?
The Recruit.
Yeah.
I saw that in the theater. It's so terrible.
I
saw it in the theater too. What's that?
I might have seen it. I can't remember.
I think Bridget Moynihan is in it too.
Yeah. She sure is.
Yeah. Yep. That's the movie.
Yeah. But I love that Colin Farrell is getting so much buzz this year for this performance, for After Yang, for his supporting performance in The Batman. I think he truly deserves it.
Jesus, I forgot about The Batman.
Yeah. He's also in 13 Lives, which I haven't seen. But yeah, like 4 performances this year. It's amazing. And 3 of them are fantastic. And one I can't speak to, but because I haven't seen it yet. But yeah, God, I love this film. Anyway.
Do we have any parting thoughts on Banshees of Inisherin before we move on?
Just remember that Inisherin's not a real island.
That's true. My parting thought, because I've kind of gushed about this over and over, I saw this months ago. I saw this when this first came out, before it came out in the theaters, actually, probably about a month before it did. Anyway, I saw it a long time ago. And I loved it right when I saw it. But the longer it's been since I've seen it the first time, it has just stuck with me. I've ruminated on it. It keeps popping into my head. I cannot forget this film. And for me, that for me is the testament of a truly great film. Like, that's what separates good films from great films. And yeah, so this film's so good.
Agreed.
Mostly agree.
Hey, listen, I know you don't like.
All right.
Yeah, it's all right. And I know you don't like period films, so I'll take it.
All right, so let's move on to Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, which feels weird every time I say it, but that is like the actual proper like title is Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio.
Right?
So as you might suspect, it is directed by Guillermo del Toro, like co-directed with Mark Gustafson or Gustafson,
that would be my guess.
Yeah, and written by Guillermo del Toro and Patrick McHale, based on the Pinocchio story by Carlo Collodi. This is an animated film. It stars Ewan McGregor, David Bradley, Gregory Mann. It's got a whole ton of people in this. Bern Gorman, Ron Perlman, John Turturro, Finn Wolfhard, Kate Blanchett, Tim Blake Nelson, Christoph Waltz, and Tilda Swinton.
Mm-hmm.
In dual roles.
True.
Right.
Yep.
Using very much the same voice, though.
Yes.
Yes, for sure. So, we'll do some kind of plot summary here. I'm just kind of giggling at the IMDb one sentence. A father's wish magically brings a wooden boy to life in Italy, giving him a chance to care for the child.
Wow.
It's
not untrue, but it also wildly misses the mark in a way that is kind of surprising even for IMDb.
Right. That's why I was giggling. So we broad strokes of the story. We have Geppetto, who is a wood carver, and his son Carlo. He loves his son. We see that they had a very idyllic, happy life together until Carlo was killed during World War I. A bomb is dropped on the church that he runs back inside. He's going to go grab his special pine cone. and he dies. And so Geppetto spends years mourning the loss of his son, being very withdrawn, and he's crying by his son Carlo's grave, and there's this pine tree that's sprung up next to it, and he chops it down and makes a puppet out of it, and then spirits of the woods decide that they want to bring it to life so that he can have a child to care for. And he's not thrilled about this at first. He's pretty freaked out that he's got a walking, talking puppet in his home. And Pinocchio he goes off on all kinds of adventures with Sebastian J. Cricket, who is voiced by Ewan McGregor in this. He was making
gets tromped on a lot.
Yep.
For a cricket.
He was making a home inside the tree before Geppetto chopped it down and turned it into Pinocchio. And so that's how Sebastian J. Cricket gets wrapped up in this. And there's just all kinds of crazy adventures. Like Pinocchio joins the circus instead of going to school. Geppetto gets swallowed by a sea creature. And, this is Guillermo del Toro, so it's weird and creepy and has this like interesting subplot about Pinocchio can die but then come back to life, but he's got to go to some like nether realm where he hangs out while the sands of time click by in the hourglass, and then he can go back.
I kind of liked that subplot.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know, I was strangely compelled by that, especially because I thought that the rabbits that carry all the caskets were going to be evil, but they were not. They were they just wanted to get done carrying caskets so they could play cards.
Right.
That's true.
That's true.
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
What do you guys think?
Well, as you know, I am no Guillermo del Toro fan, but I really, really liked this.
Yay!
There were bits that I found Pinocchio when he first comes to life to be really difficult because irritating children in movies really fucking drive me nuts. And he is just such a little prick when he first comes to life, but he doesn't have a conscience, and and there are all the growing pains, and it's a good thing Sebastian J. Cricket is with him, because otherwise I'd be like, dude, fucking Geppetto, throw him in the goddamn fire. Seriously. Of course, he'd just come back. So
he would just come back.
But like the whole thing about the hot chocolate, I mean, that just goes on for so long, and it's just like, I don't want to hear the word chocolate again enunciated so clearly so that it actually comes out chocolate. Ugh. I don't know. It really, as you can tell, went right up my ass. So
it's a bee in your bonnet.
It really is. But I have to say, I think that this style of I don't know if this is like real stop motion or computer stop motion. I don't know how they did it. You're nodding, Megan.
It's real stop motion. Yeah,
it's real stop motion.
It's real stop motion. I mean, sidebar, the part you were talking about that you liked with death, a lot of that is digital. Like the sand on the floor is real. The plinth that she's on is real. But yeah, a lot of it is digital. But yeah, no, this is real stop motion. These are real puppets that were constructed, and with stop motion animators. It's amazing. Anyway, sorry, please continue.
No, it's fine. I really have always liked stop motion, mostly because it's just kind of weird, and it looks, but in a great way. It's like you're watching. It's like you're in the land of make believe, right? Mm-hmm. And assuming the story is good enough, you can just go right along with it. And the stop motion being like looking almost real, but not quite real, it just makes it, that much more exciting. And I think that, loath as I am to admit it, I don't hate Guillermo del Toro. The Shape of Water just rubbed me, as I'm sure you remember, Evan in particular, rubbed me so the wrong goddamn way. Mm-hmm. But I just think that his sensibility, especially like the sort of light-hearted, more, I can't believe I'm going to use this word, tender aspects of Guillermo del Toro's filmography. This is kind of that as a whole movie. Not without its weirdness and grossness. I mean, that fucking sea creature. Yuck. But I really... And I didn't even though on its face, the Christoph Waltz, chimpanzee or whatever that simian is, relationship is horribly cruel. And to watch him, I think he beats the thing with a cane at one point, is just kind of like, it's gross. But at the same time, there is such otherwise, this movie's just kind of sweet, I just kind of liked that. And I think it does it well. And I think that Sebastian J. Cricket is a great version of that character, because the cricket does exist in the original story, although Pinocchio kills him.
True.
But he comes back as a ghost, a cricket ghost. So, hey, it all works out. I'm glad that there's no land of donkeys that the boys disappear to and turn into donkey mid-sentence and scream the word mama as they're becoming a donkey, which has always just haunted my dreams whenever I think about it.
Nightmare fuel.
I'm talking about the Disney Pinocchio from 1940, not the one that came out earlier this year that I didn't even know came out. The one with Tom Hanks, had no idea that movie came and went. Yeah, I just more or less dug this. So I don't even really know how much I have to say about it. Just like, it was a good 117 minutes. So, and Pinocchio irritated me less and less as the story went on.
Yeah, I think that's the
a win.
Yeah. No, I think, yeah. I mean, I think.
No, seriously, yeah.
I think everything that this movie set out to do, this movie completely works on its own, by its own scorecard,
Yeah.
So that's where I come down.
Yeah, I agree with, I think, everything you're saying, Dave. Very much Pinocchio, and I am familiar a little bit with the original novel or book, if you will, and I know the differences between that and the very Disney classic version, which is nightmare fuel. It is terrifying. Good Lord. But yeah, I liked the weirdness of this too. I like it. Kind of, for me, harkens back to children's films of the 80s, which were so weird and so kind of terrifying, but kind of brilliantly so. And it very much rang that way, the Dark Crystal and Labyrinth. And I love that. And, it's kind of not a surprise because they partnered with the Jim Henson Company. But yeah, I love the look of this. And I know they got the look and the art direction from, I think, Grim Grizzlies, and his illustrations of a re-released edition of the novel, and got the very spindly look for Pinocchio, which, oh my God, when we first see him, he's like a spider and it's so creepy. But yeah, and it's just there's the entire film for me is riding this tension, riding this tightrope between incredible whimsical tenderness, heartbreakingly so, and full on creepy terror, which is great. And it's such a great line of tension. But yeah, Pinocchio was very much at first reminded me of the kid from the Babadook, who is so obnoxious and maybe one of the most obnoxious kids I've ever seen on screen ever. And I'm like, oh my God, Pinocchio, just be quiet. Just be quiet. But then also at the same time, Geppetto, I'm so used to being the kind of paragon of fatherhood and just gentility. And this Geppetto is not. He is dealing with alcoholism. He's dealing with trauma. He's angry and he's bitter. And that's really fascinating. And so they're both kind of flawed, but yet they both love each other, and kind of seeing their relationship progress and each of their arcs coming together. The movie just wrecked me in the end. That ending on the beach when Geppetto is so devastated that Pinocchio has actually died for the final time because he has sacrificed himself so he could save Geppetto. So he sacrifices his immortality. And Geppetto is just so distraught. And then so is Sebastian, who Ewan McGregor is so great in this voice role. He's so great. I love it. And I love that he sacrifices his wish with the wood spray in order to bring Pinocchio back. And it's all so lovely. And I think it earns that incredibly sweet ending. But then the ending keeps going, and it's just so sad because it's about dealing with death and moving on after death. And it's brilliant. It's incredibly, incredibly well done. And I also really like, and I read the very lengthy production notes that we were sent. I like that Guillermo del Toro never wanted Pinocchio to become a real boy in the sense of looking like a real boy.
Yeah.
Because he didn't want to make it seem like Pinocchio had to change in order to be loved, which I think is really interesting and kind
I
of
think that's a good choice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very interesting and different from other iterations of Pinocchio. But anyway, yeah, no, I think the art direction is gorgeous. The stop motion animation is just stunning. It's fascinating to read the behind the scenes about it, how there were like 60 stages and 99 sets or something like that. Like it's impressive. It is an impressive piece of art and filmmaking, and everything just has an intentionality to it. There's apparently so many Easter eggs to other Guillermo del Toro films. Like, for instance, in the church, the stained glass windows. I did not pick this up. I read this again in the press notes that the pale man who puts his like hands up with his eyes, his image is in the church stained glass window. Like, just little touches like that.
Missed that.
Yeah, I did too. So I'm kind of like, ooh, this begs a repeat viewing later, not now, because there's too many screeners to watch for award season. But
Right.
yes, but this is a very lovely film, and I think it does what Guillermo del Toro does very well, which is dark fairy tales, childhood trauma, dealing with 1930s fascism, just like he did in Pan's Labyrinth. And he really digs into the Frankenstein themes here. And I also was getting very much Steven Spielberg's AI. And yeah, it's just really, really fascinating. So it worked for me.
How about you, Evan?
I wish I liked this as much as both of you did.
Oh no.
I think let's start with the good. I think stylistically, this movie is just gorgeous. The animation is incredible. Just really interesting visual choices with regard to the character designs and the animation. And I found that part really interesting throughout. I also really liked Ewan McGregor in this. I think he was having a lot of fun in this role as the cricket. He gave just such a funny, heartwarming performance, and I loved the nuance of having the cricket being this guy who's like, I'm writing my memoirs and I'm writing about all of my adventures, and then I've come across Pinocchio and I get mixed up with this guy and I'm along on the adventures, and it cracked me up that every time he tried to start singing, he got knocked over by somebody or something.
Really funny.
That was funny.
So I really liked that. I really liked his performance. I liked artistically what it was doing. I found Pinocchio, like you, Dave, very irritating. And
oh yeah,
from a character perspective, but also from the perspective of having, I'm just so tired of the like, let's have a kid have a British accent thing. Whereas like we're in a movie where like it's Italy and we're going to have a kid that's doing a British accent. And I just found that choice so grating. Just because I'm tired
also has a British accent.
Yeah, I know. But like the kid, like the precocious kid British accent thing to me, I find so utterly grating. So I was really annoyed at that choice. And I didn't really like the musical parts of this. I didn't think the music was good at all. And I was actually really annoyed because I feel like if you chopped out the music, I feel like the movie for me would have like moved up a grade.
I agree with you, Evan. I think the music is a hindrance.
Yeah, it's doesn't work for me. But also I just found it really long and tedious, despite being, I think, just under 2 hours. There were parts of the movie that I just felt like were dragging, and I didn't want it to because I loved what I was looking at, and I liked the artistic choices. I liked Ewan McGregor's performance, and then the rest I was just like, oh my god, when is this gonna like really toward the end? But it does come to a very moving conclusion, like you said, Megan. It really hits you, where it hurts when Pinocchio sacrifices himself and his mortality, and then he's wished back to life, and then he kind of takes care of everyone else until they die, and then he wanders the earth doing who knows what.
I know, it's
Yeah.
so sad.
Yeah, doesn't Sebastian say he doesn't know whether when he came back he was immortal or not? He might still be out there.
Yeah.
It says something
Yeah.
like that, right? Yeah. I also thought it was a nice touch that, you've got the two gravestones there for Carlo and for Geppetto, but then I can't remember the chimp's name.
Spazzatura.
Thank you. Who like is walking with Pinocchio almost arm in arm, and then you just see him fade off and his tombstone fades in. And it was just like,
So sad.
that was, I mean, it's not exactly subtle. That's not the word I would choose, but it was a really effective moment. And I really liked, I don't know why this struck me so much. Evan, I feel like I'm stomping on your bit here. I apologize. But whoever Tilda Swinton, she played the two characters, one who brought Pinocchio back and the other one who ran, Deathville. I don't know what whatever.
Deathville.
Purgatory, I guess. I don't really know.
Purgatory, yeah. I like how her character was just kind of a tut-tutter. She wasn't like mean or evil or anything. She's like, look, there's rules. My sister broke the rules, and this is just the way it goes, kid. But the only way to become a real boy is to break the rules. And then she shows him how to do it by tapping on the hourglass, And I was just like, I just really, even this character who's like, there's rules. She's like, but there is also Pinocchio's relationship with Geppetto.
Right.
And my cold, cold purgatorial heart has been warmed.
I agree. I liked that choice too.
Mm-hmm. It was a good one. I really liked that aspect of the movie. I thought it was an inspired choice to delve into the purgatory. Pinocchio can come back to life, but has to follow the weird rules of the sands of time. And I just thought all the art direction there was just incredible. The creature design of the different spirits that Tilda Swinton is voicing, I just thought they were such gorgeous creatures, and I was excited when we got to go. I was sad that Pinocchio had to die to go back there, but I was excited when we got to go back and hang out in this weird netherworld.
Right? I was obsessed. I'm so glad you said that, Evan, because I was obsessed with the eyes and the wings of both the wood sprite and Death.
Sure.
Yeah. And I was reading that Guillermo del Toro, because I immediately thought of Madeleine L'Engle's book, A Wind in the Door, where there's a creature that's comprised of just wings and eyes. But Guillermo del Toro said that he was inspired by Mexican angels in like medieval art. And I was like, that's so fascinating. So interesting. That's the thing. I think this movie is really interesting in its choices. But I do agree with you, Evan. The music, no. And it is a bit tedious in the middle. I agree with that too. I don't disagree with what you're saying. It just, I think the end worked so well for me and the visuals worked so well that I was kind of like, it's okay.
Yeah. You were more willing to forgive the middle part.
Yes.
I don't even remember the music, honestly. All I remember is Ewan McGregor breaking into, like, he gets one bar into song and then he gets a door slammed in his face or somebody steps on him. That's what I remember.
Yes.
Yep. And then he starts singing again and the fish swallows them in the boat.
Yeah. Yeah. I also like that this movie subverted a lot of what I thought was going to be typical Guillermo del Toro turns into the horrifying. Like when Pinocchio dies and then he's in purgatory, there are about 30 seconds there where you're like, this is just going to be so gross. And then it's just like everybody's just got a job, and they're just they're just at work.
You're playing cards.
Yeah.
So. One of these rabbits is speaking Yiddish. Whatever. Fine. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of whimsical. I mean, just sort of, Anyway, well, I mean, it's too bad that you didn't like it as much, Evan, but that's okay. We do that on Spoiler Piece.
Yeah, and I think there were definitely a lot of good elements to this movie. So it was I think worth seeing because it makes enough interesting choices. And like you, I barely even noticed the other Pinocchio that came out this year. Like I think I knew it was out, but I barely even cared or it flew so far under the radar.
Well, I was reading about it. It was horribly reviewed and tanked at the box office, right? So
yes, yeah.
I guess that's why we wouldn't have heard of it.
Reviews.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure I buy Tom Hanks as Geppetto. So, but
I don't know. That sounds like the only really good choice there in that film. Not that I've seen it. Maybe he's a terrible Geppetto. I don't know, but I love Tom Hanks.
Who knows?
Yeah, I feel like he could work it in anything. But speaking before we wrap up, I just want to say I also think it's such a fascinating choice that Spazzatura the monkey is voiced by Cate Blanchett, and yet the monkey doesn't really speak except for voicing two puppets. But the monkey themselves doesn't actually speak yet. She's making all these noises. Like it's just I think of like when Ben, what's his face, who does Jean-Ralphio, like voiced the droids in the new Star Wars. Anyway, love it. Love that she's vocalizing with sounds. It's great.
Or Alan Tudyk playing the rooster in Moana.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I love Alan Tudyk.
Yeah, me too.
All right, so I think that wraps up another episode of Spoiler Piece Theater. So let's do a quick recap. So Banshees of Inisherin, I believe, is available to rent now. Yay? Nay?
Oh, yay.
Sorry, couldn't hear you.
I'm a yay on Banshees.
Oh my God, yes.
An
definitely
enthusiastic yay.
Yes, like I said, it's one of my top 10 films of the year. So yes, definitely see it.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of good here. For me, it's less enthusiastic of a yay, but I think there's definitely some good drama here and some great performances that are worth seeing. And Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio.
Oh, that's a solid yes for me.
Me too.
And I'm more your mileage may vary, but it also there's a lot of good here. So I want to say a huge thank you to our editor, Otto Clamor. Otto, thank you as always for making us sound great week after week.
Thanks, Otto.
Thank you, Otto.
You can find us anywhere you get podcasts, and you can also find us at our website, which is spoilerpiece.com. You can find us all over social media. We're Spoiler Piece Theater on Facebook. We're at Spoiler Piece on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and TikTok. And if you want to get in touch with us, you can send us an email, spoilerpiece@gmail.com, or you can give us a call
at 862-21-PEACE.
You can leave us a voicemail, tell us what you thought of these movies. You can just say hi, all the above. We'd love to hear from you, so feel free to reach out. And if you like the show, please rate and review us by going to ratethispodcast.com/spoilerpiece. You can leave us a review on your platform of choice. We really appreciate it. It helps more people find the show. And if you really, really like the show, please consider joining our Patreon. This week, for our exclusive audio we do for our patrons, we talked about the 1988 film Miracle Mile. And so when you sign up to be a patron, $5 and up, you can get access to this exclusive audio. So bonus episodes, you get to vote in polls, all that good stuff. So definitely check that out, patreon.com/spoilerpiece. My name is Evan Crean. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd as Real Recon, and that's real as in film reel.
My name is Megan Kearns. I write film reviews for Edge Media Network. I, too, am a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and I'm a member of Gallica. You can follow me on Twitter at OpinionSWorld or on Instagram and Letterboxd at TheOpinionS.
And I'm Dave Riedel. I write and I talk about movies. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and if you'd like to follow me on the social medias, I'm at Dave Sees Movies on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd.
See you next week.
Bye.